applications. So there are efforts to try and mobilize those resources to ensure that we have more people. But if we don't succeed, we'll still have that grouping, 500 people. It's a lot of people. 20 people per working group. Bopila Sande and Sbusiso, they are stuck. They're saying, who do I bring, who do I not bring? I don't know. Now I'm saying if you can't do it, I will select. I'll do any minima and then I will have the first 20. Because if we have given you the opportunity to say, these are the people, because as leaders we have to make choices. We have 20, you have to give us 20. You can't say, no, but can't we make it 25? No, we can't make it 25 because it means that we must add additional resources to the 25. Now, with that being said, that's the process that we are going to engage, that they are bringing the sum total of the process that they have worked on since June, when we had our midterm policy meeting. The engagement have primarily been online. Some of the engagement groups have had opportunities to have in-person discussions. And the reason for us not to have in-person discussion is because of resources. And you must also not be, what is the right word? We must not be selfish as South Africans. Because we're talking about this thing that we're not meeting physically because it's us. So if we're in Joburg, there's somebody who's in the Western Cape, there's somebody in the Northern Cape, and in the Northern Cape, they could be in Kabusna. I don't know whether people know where Kabusna is, in the Northern Cape. That is far Northern Cape next to Namibia. So getting all of us to be in one area, it's a very costly exercise, colleagues. It's a costly exercise. Now you can imagine, our working groups have people that are overseas, they have people that are in the rest of other African countries. So even with the best of efforts, it would not have been possible for us to actually get everybody to be meeting all the time to discuss the policy briefs. What are the policy briefs? There are a sum total of policy proposals that are informed by what Pilar will talk about, what Usbusiso will talk about as the leaders of the various working groups. Others are online as well. It is the sum total of the various inputs. Now, some amongst us are saying, no, other people have not been involved. Colleagues, the G20, what does G stand for? It's a government process. It's a government process. However, this government process makes provision for other voices. So even if we didn't meet, governments are going to meet, presidents and heads of states are going to meet, and they're going to deal with the things that they're dealing with. Does it make it right? No. That's why there is this process that has enabled us to be engaged. Somebody says, but people don't know about G20. Tough luck for those people. It's been happening in South Africa for the whole year. It's going to happen next year. It's going to America. It's going to happen. It happened last year in Brazil, where we engaged about the G20 in South Africa last year. When not. But some amongst us were participating in the working groups that were established for the Brazilian process. So what we have done is to ignite a spark that people know about this global process. Another global process that is there is the BRICS process. There is a similar process to this. South Africa has hosted BRICS events maybe twice because it also rotates. And we have not been as involved as we are. Now that we have ignited that spark, we're hoping that we will continue in this journey. We must not be selfish. We must not be self-serving in these processes because they are bigger than us. They are also about others. And when we use a technology to connect us, it means that Maziko, who is a working group leader in Malawi, gets to be part of the engagement. It means Wanjiku, who is a working group leader in Kenya, she's able to join us. It means, what's his name? Dmitry, who is Russian and doesn't speak English, who is in Moscow, is able to join us. And what does he do? Because resources allow him, he comes with a translator so that he can hear and we can hear him. But we have another problem of Fodea. He's one of the working group facilitators for one of our working groups. He speaks French, and the people that are coordinating with him, they speak English. And efforts have to be made to ensure that, unlike Dimitri, who can have a translator, Fodea does not have those resources to have a translator. So we have to make ways. We have Jacob here who can understand French. So we use him not only as an IT person, we use him as a translator for French so that for they can be part and parcel of this engagement. What does that mean? It means that we are inclusive, we're using technology to take us to where we want, but we are also innovative and industrious in that we use the resources available to us. Jacob, if he was another person, he will say, here's my invoice for translation services, because these things, they cost money. So I'm not here to rave and rant. I'm just saying we must understand these particular things within context. We started late in June. There were civil society contestations about how we move along with this particular process. There are also other people that some resources have been directed elsewhere because people make choices. So our inability to not have mobilized enough resources, we mustn't take it too hard, colleagues. We have done the unthinkable. For Pilar Sunday to come present to you the final product, people were expecting that we would not arrive at this point. For Sbusiso to do that, people would have expected that we would not have arrived at this point. But all of us, and we come from different organizations. Some of these organizations come from different networks. And some of those networks did not interact as well. But people said, there's the G20, we are C20, we want to contribute. They never looked at people based on where you come from. They said, we're putting our best foot forward to make it work. So I don't want to take anything away from them. They are the experts in terms of the content. They are here in person and virtually to present to us. I'm now going to give over to my co-facilitator, and Tsako can come to the stage. She's going to drive this particular machinery, because I must also go to another meeting. We have the meeting with the national lotteries now at 11 with the chairperson so that we can secure the bag. But she is capable and able enough to drive this ship. Over to you, Madam Chair.
Greetings, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and members of civil society. In this session, we'll be hearing from Working Group 9 through to Working Group 14 as they present their carefully developed policy briefs. Following their presentations, these policies will be formally adopted, which is a critical step in ensuring that the voices and priorities of civil society are fully represented. And also in the absence of Bavuyise, Ribaone will be the cluster coordinator in case of any admin help that will be needed. So without further ado, due to time, let's begin with Working Group 9, which is Quality Education for Future Sustainability, which will be facilitated by Pilar Sunday Mkhuzo.
Can you hear me? Okay. Greetings to everyone online, greetings to everyone in the room. My name is Pilar Sunday Mkhuzo. By profession and affiliation, I am an attorney at the Equal Education Law Center. In terms of the C20 work, I am a joint facilitator for Working Group 9, along with Jabulisile Tongwana, supported by 3 co-facilitators, Bonani Bedla, who's in the room, Marie Michelle online, and Professor Halima Kunoete. As this particular working group, we were tasked with coming up and envisioning, I suppose, what sustainable education looks like for the future. One could not talk about education without acknowledging what a multiplier and a gateway the right to education is, not just in South Africa, but globally. The discourse around education is not only within the South African context, but there are underlying similarities across the globe. Now, Sustainable Development Goal number 4 gives us a glimpse in terms of what quality education looks like, and that is safety, inclusivity, an effective learning environment, relevant curricula, well-trained teachers, and appropriate resources. As we look at these different criterias and we look at the issues globally, we do realize that there is definitely a crisis at hand. Having done the work with the different organizations and participants in the working group, key challenges had been identified. Firstly, insufficient provisioning and funding of early childhood care and education, inadequate training and capacitation of educators, lack of equity, lack of inclusion, and austerity measures. All these being issues that hamper and limit full access to what we want as quality education and sustainable education. Now, the reality is there is a literacy gap, and this literacy gap is due to these key challenges. Approximately 250 million children lack foundation literacy skills, while 754 million adults cannot read or write with understanding. And of that population, a majority are women. Now, this does not only set itself in South Africa, but globally. As the working group, the key message is simple. It's outlining systematic challenges that impede quality education, particularly in the global south, and offers a multifaceted approach in addressing these issues. What is our mandate? The mandate is recognizing and realizing that education is a fundamental human right under international law. And the goal is to stress the issues of inclusivity, equitability, cultural responsiveness, sustainable education systems, but importantly, prioritizing marginalized group. What are we asking as this particular group? The G20 is urged to adopt measurable, ambitious, but also measurable commitments, including robust frameworks for finance and governing. Having done the work, the group identified at least 6 priority areas, which I'll go through now, which speak to the different key challenges that I mentioned earlier. Priority area 1 speaks to substantial public financing of early child care education. Now, what is the problem there? Over 175 million children are excluded from pre-primary education worldwide due to persistent underinvestment and fragmented delivery. What are our key recommendations? From a governance perspective, establishing interministerial councils and inclusive legislative frameworks. From a financing perspective, expanding public allocations and adopting a cost of quality framework. And from an equity perspective, looking at embedding indigenous language instructions and extending services to more marginalized groups. I think in the South African context, one is quite cognizant of how the ECD sector broadly looks, where there's public and there's private. And when one considers where private is and some of the challenges that the private sector is faced with, these key recommendations become important. Priority B considers teacher development and professional dignity. Now we need to strengthen the backbone of our education. Teachers on a daily face overcrowded classrooms, low pay, outdated training, inadequate mental health support, and critical shortages. Now, this is nothing new to the South African context. Key recommendations coming out from the group is linking teachers to incentives so that they continue to develop professionally, prioritizing teacher well-being and mental health, embedding environmental or sustainability education and inclusive pedagogies in training, and in terms of recruitment, ensuring that subject-specific teacher placement and recruitment takes place. I think it's safe to say you cannot pour from an empty cup. Priority area C, which looks at inclusive education for all. Aligning with SDG 4 and social justice, we are all about removing barriers that learners face when it comes to accessing education. Addressing barriers for learners with disabilities, neurodiverse learners, learners who fall part of the LGBTQI plus community, and those facing poverty, displacement, and rural disadvantage. Key recommendations include rectifying and enforcing existing international instruments, implementing universal design for learning across curricula and pedagogy. From an investment perspective, funding inclusive infrastructure, literacy, and assistive technologies. We are moving with the fourth industrial revolution. Then lastly, from a cultural perspective, it's really to implement inclusive uniform policies and enforce clear disciplinary codes against learners who are part of the LGBTQI community. Priority D looks at integrated governance for social justice. We need a coordinated social services and psychosocial support within our schools. The focus here is to really establish cross-sectoral governance frameworks that align health, education, social protection, justice systems at different levels of governance. The key recommendations coming from this, the first one being a policy and legal reform recommendation, is social, economic, and environmental policies that must be interconnected and avoid contradictions that undermine equity. We ask that G20 member states prioritize evidence-based legislative reform, align education and health with international human rights standards. Secondly, from a system integration and multi-level collaboration, this is looking at across the sectors and establishing a cross-sectorial governance framework that does align health, education, social protection, nutrition, and justice systems between the local, national, regional, and global actors. Importantly, to ensure that solutions are context-specific, but also globally informed. Then priority E considers the issues of budget justice. The investment needs to follow the learner. Public education systems worldwide face severe fiscal pressures that threaten the realization of SDG 4. In accordance with the G20 presidency's theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, countries must coordinate to prioritize education investment over debt servicing and create sustainable financing for inclusive education systems. 3 key recommendations. The first one, combating illicit flows. We need to combat corporate tax evasion to unblock $480 billion lost annually to illicit financial flows. Secondly, debt reform. G20 must reform debt frameworks for fiscal relief, including debt for education swaps. And then lastly, looking at our spending floors, enforcing minimum education spending floors. Then priority F, which considers the global prioritization of the reading and literacy revolution agenda. The poor global literacy progress is reflective in deep inequalities. Poverty, gender, inequality, disability, and rural isolation continue to limit access to education. Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia face the most severe literacy gaps. Disadvantaged groups across regions remain excluded. The digital divide intensifies these disparities, where only 14% of children in Africa have internet access, leaving millions without the digital skills needed for modern economies. 3 main recommendations coming from there. 1, enhancing teacher training and literacy pedagogy and inclusive practices. Secondly, ensuring basic digital infrastructure. And thirdly, providing local language reading materials and expanding community adult literacy programs. Now, having considered all those different recommendations and how they cross and are interconnected, we look at what would the overall benefit look like. 1, we are looking at a coherent policy ecosystem which supports equitable education access. We are looking at sustainable financing for quality education systems. We are also looking at resilient learning environments. We are bound to get well-rounded, future-ready, and climate-friendly learners, but importantly, evidence-based improvements and sustained progress tracking. Thank you so much.
I would okay. Let me talk to the IT person quickly. Jacob, they have an issue with the link. Please fix it because we need to do the second. No one can. They say they can't. They can't hear. Okay. I may like to request that we have a mover as well as a seconder to formally adopt the Working Group 9 policy brief. May you please stand.
Check for you, sir. Check 1, 2.
Yes, I'm Sibusiso Mkhize. I move for adoption of the Working Group 9 a policy brief.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gulani Majabele. I second the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May you please have a round of applause for that. Now we're going to move swiftly into the Working Group 10, which is Employment Opportunities and Retention, which will be facilitated by Mr. Sibusiso Mkhize.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to the delegates that are present here and everyone that is joining us online. My name is Sibusiso Mkhize. I am a facilitator for Work Group 9, Employment, Opportunities and Retention. And continue to work with Dr. Karina Morgensen, who's a co-facilitator, and Nayong Kong, who's another co-facilitator. Before we start, I would like to really thank the group, the facilitators and the group and the people that we priority lead that really work hard, push for this work to happen against odds with short deadlines. And we were given a list of, I think it was about 100 and odd people that were part of the people that registered for the group, but we really work with about a group of about 40 people that showed up every time to participate and give input and make suggestions and really work hard. And I hope their contribution will be acknowledged. The Shepherd is not here, that their contribution will be acknowledged. If there was time, I was going to read out their names. So we had a task of looking at employment opportunities and retention. And we had a task on the background, particularly in this country, of increase unemployment for about 5 consecutive quarters, consecutive every quarter. So we have currently more unemployed people now than we had last quarter, and last quarter, a quarter before that. But it's not a South African phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon, particularly in the global South. When you look at the unemployment in this country, we are currently, as of last month, we had 33.2% unemployed people. But that's an official definition. It means the people that decided not to look for work are not counted on that. So we have 43.6% of this country that are not employed. So we are almost at a point where there is the same number of people that are employed than the people that are unemployed. And that's also without looking at people that are underemployed. You have people that are underemployed, you have people that sell on the street and receive very little. So the informal, it's counted under the people that are employed, but actually they are underemployed. So it's a disaster. It's a pandemic. It's the same as having COVID. And I mean the response to it should be. Now, the working group looked at 7 priorities in response to the challenge that we have. The first priority was the civil society inclusion in the tripartite plus. We're calling it tripartite plus because globally, currently, it's a tripartite. You have labor, you have business, and you have government fully represented. It works in the north because if you have those 3, you have about 95% of the people represented. But in the global south, like I've mentioned the stats in South Africa, for instance, it means you have half the people that are not represented because they neither in employment, they neither employers, and they're neither in government. So it means the burden is sitting with the civil society. So the people that are sitting in this room and that are following, but also the ones that are at home, are the ones that provide health, they are the ones that are providing social services to the masses that are unemployed. They should be at work, but they are not at work. So we are saying that the tripartite structure should include civil society, particularly here and in Global South and in Africa in general. The second one is promote decent work agenda as articulated in the ILO. The third one is link employment opportunities to education, skills development and training. The fourth one was increase investment in rural communities. The fifth one is promote public-private partnership to grow employment and absorb youth into new jobs. The sixth one is to promote robust public employment program. And the seventh is diversity, equity, and inclusion of women, youth, people with disability, and LGBTQA+ communities. And these priorities aim to strengthen inclusive labor market policies, promote decent and sustainable employment, retain workers in decent jobs, and ensure that no one is left behind. So our clarion call to the G20 leaders is to adopt a holistic approach that values public-private partnerships, centers social dialogue, including civil society voices, and prioritize targeted investment in rural and rural development in informal economies around marginalized groups. So when you look at why this issue is so important, currently, as of May 2025, there were 668 million people that are unemployed. That represents 5% of the people that should be in employment across the world. But where it becomes interesting is that the 5% looks huge when you're looking at it and you are coming from the west and you're coming from the north. But actually it's a drop in the ocean if you're coming from to what is happening in Africa. So that is why we are saying that G20 countries on their own, because they're dominated by the north and the west, and the countries that do not have or experience the pinch that we are experiencing. They don't have the challenges that we are experiencing. So here in South Africa, we have an opportunity to lead the advocacy and say to countries in the global north and countries in the west that actually, contrary to the issues that you have, we have an additional issue, which is unemployment and underemployment, and it's becoming a pandemic. I mean, when you look at what is happening in South Africa and you look at what was happening, for instance, 20 years ago, we are going backwards. So we're not in creating employment, and some of the employment that we're creating is not of quality. Some people are earning the same amount of money that they earned 15, 20 years ago. And it makes their progress, it makes negative progress. So when you look at the SDG 8, the quality or the performance of many regions outside of the west and the north are appalling. So we're not meeting targets, for instance, of creating decent work. So some regions, for instance, when you look at across the Africa, 83% of all employment is informal, and 87% of all women that are in employment are in informal employment. So over and above the fact that you have unemployment, we have people that are employed, but they are also not represented in any way. So there is no benefits for them. There's no medical benefits. There's no insurance for them, or provident fund, or whatever you call it, when they need to retire. So we have people that may never retire until they're in their 80s. They'll have to work to survive. So that is in Africa. The MENA as well, Middle East and North Africa, the same story. More than 62% of the people in the region are informal. So in addressing this inequality, marginalization, and unequal access to opportunities, civil society organizations are key actors, and they are the interface between communities or between the unemployed people, because no one else is able to reach them because it's none of their concern. The employers are concerned with the people that work, the laborers, the unions are concerned with their clients, which are people that are employed. So in terms of looking at the priority one, for instance, and we are saying at the civil society, including NGOs, cooperatives, micro-enterprises, who represent the majority of the people that are unemployed, should be included and should be represented, and that we should fight for their space, and we should fight and advocate for their space, because that's the space that they need to occupy for anything to change. And that the existing tripartite model reflect less than half of the real economy in most global South countries. In the absence of the civil society organization, it means policymakers will not make the policies that favors the poor, because the civil society organizations are absent. And I'm saying this being cognizant of the fact that we have a different situation in South Africa, where at NEDLAC, for instance, you have a civil society, which is a NEDLAC community. But we are saying that they need to be strengthened in policy making, and also be able to reach out. So our policy recommendation in this regard is that civil society should be engaged, and that the participation should be meaningful, but it should also be sustained. So we should not be called in because there's G20, or be called in because there is a social dialogue, or there's a dialogue that the president is advocating for to then mobilize the communities. But it should be a sustained presence that reflects the issues in society, up to a point where there's change, where there's less people that are unemployed, and then we can feel that we have made an impact. And the second priority is a decent work agenda. And we are saying we need to look at how far we are. We are in 2030 now, and the SDGs, the sustainable development 2030, which means we have like 4 years before the end of the term. We need to reflect, and we need to look at how far we are with the decent work agenda. But we need to, that's least of our problem, because we need to look at the work availability. At the moment, you're looking at the decent work for people that are working, but we're not looking at the work availability for the people that are not working. And we're saying we need to be able to say, how do we then create employment so that not only are we fighting for the decent work for the people that are working, but we're fighting for the entry of the people that are outside of society, of the broader workspace. And then the third one, and then our recommendation is we are saying that we need to that civil society organizations needs to be involved in the creation of innovative, high quality, productive and inclusive job space, especially for the vulnerable groups, the women, the youth, the people with disabilities, the LGBTQA communities, and also people that are living in rural areas, because by virtue of location, they are also vulnerable groups. And our third priority is linking employment with education, skills development, and training. So we know that we are creating graduates that are not responding to the market. And one of the things that we are saying is that we need to have the institutions of learning as centers of excellence, as centers of innovations and centers where communities can get around, not just the students that who have come from all over the country to go and learn, but have them accepting communities to learn, to cross-learn, to look at the cultures around which the institutions are based, and really create those nuggets or areas of excellence. You know, a few years ago, I remember I used to work for the city of Joburg, and when in the provision of electricity, when Eskom was shutting down the stations, they will import people from Korea for like 2 weeks to come and do all the artisan based work, because they're specialized artisan and all that. But when you look at what the artisan work is it's something that anybody can do. It's NQF level 4 or maximum. So you're not talking about engineers, you're just talking about people that are doing practical work. We still have a situation where the country needs to create 30,000 or to train 30,000 artisans every year. So we're not producing that. And that's high-end, high-value employment opportunities that can be accessed by everyone. We're still importing people for some specialized work, because we're employing companies from China that will bring those people. They come in for 1 month, do what they need to do, and they go back. So we are getting graduates, and we're getting graduates that do not have any experience because the centers of learning do not create that opportunities. They do not create a working relationship with the private sector and government, or they're not trusted to actually make an input in that sense. So we are saying that we need to establish rural training hubs that are linked to cooperatives and agriculture. We need to mainstream gender equity policies in skills development, so that women are not disproportionately represented as they are now. And also look at the recognition of prior learning, and look at in the employment space, look at how the marginalizations of people with disabilities, the LGBTQA plus communities are acknowledged and represented in that employment space, so that they're not marginalized by individuals that may have different opinions around them. And also, in some instances, employers might not think it's a burden to make provision for people with disabilities. So we are saying that should be accommodated and space created. And then we are saying priority 4 is to increase investment in rural communities. This one can never be overemphasized. We have people moving from rural communities coming into the cities for opportunities, but we're saying the opportunities should be created in rural communities. The biggest issue is infrastructure. At that, there should be a move to create infrastructure. You know, when you look at, for instance, in South Africa, when you look at how budget is allocated, we have this thing called DORA, Division of Revenue Act. And our Division of Revenue Act look at the number of people that live in that location, and they allocate budget based on that. It doesn't look at needs. So if you are in the rural areas, you're scarcely populated, it means development will come very long. There will be busier in Sandton taking out the old tiles and putting on the new ones because the budget is there, but they will not be looking at, because the number of people that are in cities are many. It means the infrastructure budget based on the DORA goes to the people that are already developed, or to areas that are already developed. So we are saying we need to look at some of those policies so that they are pro-rural, and they favor rural. They look at needs as opposed to looking at population, for instance. And so the big issue in rural areas is infrastructure, but also there's a lot of marginalization of women in rural areas, where issues that are pertaining to women are not acknowledged. They are treated in the same standard as men, but they need to look after children, and they have many burdens that they carry. So we are saying the policies should look at how women are accommodated in workspaces in rural areas. And then the fifth one is public-private partnership and SMME development. You know, most of the developing countries, when you look at India, you're looking at Brazil, you're looking at China, the government makes an effort to bring in SMMEs so that they are able to survive. In some countries, for instance, close the neighbors, Zimbabwe, and the tobacco industry, it's the government that buys from the tobacco farmers, so that the farmers can focus on producing and not be preoccupied with finding market. And if you're an individual farmer, it's very hard to find a market for your tobacco or for anything like that. So we are saying that governments should look at how they anchor and support, not just saying you need you're a startup, or we need 200,000, we'll give you 200,000 to get tools for your farm, but to look at how are they supported throughout the value chain, how are they prioritized throughout the value chain, and the broad-based economic empowerment should be looking at different criteria for entry. Not just whether you are black or you can produce, because you can be black but you are not able to produce because of the environment, of the markets, of all those things that we are saying, that the SMMEs should be supported much broader than just being given startup capital, but more how do we buy, what are the quotas to buy from them, so that it becomes policies of government in the global south, but it also becomes something that is embedded in society, which means business understand that. That's how they should be, I'm talking about big business and medium-sized business, how they should be working with SMME, not as a favor, but as an embedded, institutionalized procedure or process. Priority 6 is public employment program. So, you know, when there's a crisis across the world, when there will be world wars or wars in general, the one way where government would bring the economy back and the livelihoods of people is through public employment program. Employ people in various areas and assist them to move out of the poverty traps. In the Global South, we have normalized the poverty. It's normal. The underemployment is normal. So there are no efforts that are made to actually lift people out of poverty. So we are saying governments have opportunities to do that. They have opportunities to use the public employment programs as stepping stones. In many instances, we have public employment program, but they're similar. They're almost the same as your grant, as your basic income grant, because you get the legal money, but there's no expectation of production or anything because you don't have the tools, you don't have the infrastructure. So it's a way of government saying survive, but then it does not take you out of poverty because then you're there forever. There's no support, there's no entry and exit. And the people that were there a long time ago, 10 years ago, are still there, and there's no one, there's no exit, so there's no push for new people to enter. And we're saying government should rethink that, and they should develop policies that says a model public employment program should have these tools, should have this infrastructure, and should have this exit opportunity. And then in between, you have training, you have skills development, you have mentorship, but you have things that pushes people out so that new people come in and people are not trapped in public employment programs. But we are saying as a start, we should have massive public employment program to assist the people out of poverty. The South African government at the moment is talking about the BIG, the Basic Income Grant. I remember 25 years ago we were advocating for Basic Income Grant. But instead of the Basic Income Grant, fortify the public employment program, make people produce an exit, because it gives them dignity to know that I'm earning this money because I've done A, B, C, D, instead of what you'll see during COVID. I think it still happen with these young people, sitting outside the post office trying to hide their faces because they don't want people to see that they come in to collect the 350 rand. But if that is within the context of the public employment program, it then assists them. They know we are entering here, we're going to get training, and we're going to exit. Now, we have a model in India. India have what is called NREGA program. It's NREGA, it's National Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Scheme. It currently employs 87 million people in rural areas only. It's working because people come in and they exit, but it keeps on growing because there are new entrants into it, but there are people also that are exiting on the other side. So it's something that the governments in the Global South should look at learning from, and look at how do we imitate it and improve it and adapt it for our situation. And then the last one, the last priority is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now we've touched on this in the various priorities, but we are saying here that we need to look at the vulnerable group differently. We should be tuned into acknowledging that there are people with disabilities. I mean, Mr. Mabalane was talking here about languages and some of the challenges that you have with languages, but that's the least of our issues. We're not talking about the people that are attending this meeting now, that are deaf, the people that are attending this meeting that are blind, with how are we accommodating them? We're not tuned in, and the governments in the global south in particular are not really looking at how do we improve the lives of people with disabilities. And so with all the other vulnerable groups, it should be second nature. It should be second nature. The first question that you should ask when you walk in, is there someone who's blind in this room? Is there somebody who's, and make provision for that to happen. So we are advocating for it to happen. Obviously, there are issues of resources and all that, but we are saying that we need to treat that question not as a side question, but as a thing that in our head, that if it's not happening, you are disadvantaging a certain percentage. And when we were talking to people with disabilities in this group, they're saying 16% of the population are people with disabilities. So it's a big chunk of people with various disabilities. And I think you can say I keep on looking down. I have visual impairedness. I have not accepted it as a disability, but I was told that actually I should be getting a grant because I'm usually I have the visual impaired as well. But I'm just working through it. So in our policy recommendation, we are saying that the government should ensure that workplaces create inclusive spaces and fair opportunities for women, persons with disabilities, LGBTQA plus individuals, and implement diversity and inclusive initiatives such as bias training, flexible work arrangement, including remote hybrid work and compressed work week to accommodate the vulnerable groups. I think that I'm just on time, Chairperson. That's the end. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I would like to request again to have one mover and one seconder for the Working Group 10 policy brief. Do we have anyone?
I move for the adoption of Working Group 10's policy brief.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for that?
Good morning. My name is Noxolo Mbokoma. I do second. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Round of applause for that. So right now we're going to move into our tea break. So we're going to have our tea break this side. It's going to be until 12:15.
Yes, hi.
Umhlaba ukhula ngothando lwakhe, izandla zakhe zenza izwe lidlume, ubuso buhle ukukhanya kwemini, ububele bakhe umthombo wempilo. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, siyakuphotamela, siyakuphotamela, amakhosi yazi amandla akho. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, izwi lakho linjengemvula ethulile, amadolo aphansi sikhuleka kuwe, ngaphezu kwamakhuma udlula izivunguvungu. Umama wethu ukhanya ngathi inkanyezi, ngoba wena uyisibani sethu, ngoba wena uyinkanyezi yethu. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, siyakukhothamela, siyakukhothamela, amakhosi ayazi amandla akho. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, izizwe zihlangana phansi kwezinyawo amazwi akho ayisihloko sezinganekwane thina siyakuhlabelela ngoba wena uyasipha impilo umama omkhulu ngibona izintaba eziphakeme amazwi aphakathi kimi ayangidonsa ngizoyiphula imigogro yami ngizokhanya njengenkanyezi esiphakaphakeni ngikhuluma namaphupho wami ngiyakhwaya kodwa ngikredi phezulu siphakama phezulu amandla ethu awanamkhawulo phezulu siphakama phezulu izulu liyakhala kodwa asiduki imimoya iyahamba kodwa ngisuka izinyawo zami zishaya umhlaba wonamandla ngiyaphuma ngaphandle kwezindonga ngibona ukukhanya ngiyalubona ngikhala ngegama lami ngiyajabula ngiyazibamba phezulu siphakama phezulu amandla ethu awanamkhawulo phezulu siphakama phezulu izulu liyakhala kodwa asiduki phezulu siphakama phezulu amandla ethu awanamkhawulo phezulu siphakama phezulu izulu liyakhala kodwa asiduki sihamba sonke izwe libanzi amazwi ethu ahlanganisa imiphefumulo iyabona ukukhanya kuphume ezinhliziyweni noma ungowaphi sihlangana njengamanzi ubuhle bomhlaba buhle kuyakhanya. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, izandla zethu zibanjiwe. Amadwala nezihlahla azikhulumi, kodwa siyakwazi ukuzwa izindaba zabo. Ulwandle luluhlaza, izulu limhlophe, ngiyabona izintaba zimema sonke. Izwi linye, iqiniso lilodwa. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, izandla zethu zibanjiwe. Awukwazi ukuvala umoya othandayo, awukwazi ukuvalela izinkanyezi ezikhanyayo, ngoba sonke singabantu, izintambo zomphefumulo. Siyaphila, siyathandana, siphelele. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, izandla zethu zibanjiwe. Kuyashona, kodwa ngiyahamba njalo. Izinyembe zingehla phansi, ngithi phambili njalo. Phikelela, phikelela, ngaphandle kokwesaba. Phikelela, phikelela, ukukhanya kuzobuya. Imimoya iyabuza, iziphepho azipheli, kepha isibindi siyaphumelela. Ngithi ngizoqhubeka njalo. Phikelela, phikelela, ngaphandle kokwesaba. izihlahla zihlokoma amadara ayaphuma inhlanzi emanzini izulu liyasina ngibonga konke okuphila kwethu ubuhle bemvelo siyabonga ubuhle bemvelo ilanga liyakhanya imimoya iyahluma izimbali ziyasonta umhlaba unothile hamba nawe emasini phansi kwezihlahla hamba nawe sijabule ngenjabulo ubuhle bemvelo
Sikanya njalo siyajabula siyathokoza siyazikhaja siyamemeza izwi lethu liphezulu njalo siyafisa ukukhanya kwethu izihlahla ziyaphefumula
I sorted?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Have we started, Jacob?
Can you hear? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all refreshed. We're going to move to Working Group 11, which is Equitable Health for All, and the facilitator is Ngatendwa Murumbezi, who will be joining us online. Ngatendwa, can you hear us?
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you. I'm here also with the lead facilitator, Nombasa.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much and good day to all. We are presenting on behalf of working group number 11, which the name itself, Equitable Health for All, says it all. It was about all of us as the opportunities coming to South Africa. We try to forge efforts in making sure that we bridge the gaps, the challenges, but also we bring resolution in having equitable health for all. So the way we worked in our working group, we also had the priority leads that after we engaged with the membership, we agreed to have 5 priorities for these working groups. And then also as we were embarking and engaging on it, we also agreed that because the opportunity is coming to Africa and also leveraging on the global South efforts, let's make sure that there are priorities that are talking into the challenges we have, also to the solutions that speak to that. So briefly, we had 5 main priorities that we talked into that my co-facilitator Tanga is going to talk into. So the first one was building resilient health system through universal health coverage, primary health care, and retention for health workforce. And then the second one was also looking, as we said, to Africanizing the work, but also bringing the leveraging on global South initiatives. So the second one is talking into advancing regional manufacturing and health R&D as a response to pandemic preparedness, TB, and innovation gaps. The third priority that also we feel that it needs attention because it's becoming also a pandemic in Africa and South Africa, is about the inclusion of mental health when we are stemming the tide of non-communicable diseases, which is our priority number 3. And then we then said again, as we are talking about research, as we are talking about financing resilience and sustaining the gains of the past, let's also make sure that we position traditional medicine as the community-anchored health system response, which is our priority number 4. And the last but not least priority, I think it's the elephant in the house, especially when we're talking about health, which is the dwindling funding for health. So our last priority is talking into sustaining domestic and global health financing with equity, national ownership, and accountability at the core. So these were the priorities that in every advocacy opportunity that we went to, including the G20 official health working group, we made sure that we took what was coming out of the her working group engagements to advocate on those different opportunities. In those few words, then I will hand over to my co-facilitator, Nga, to highlight what were the challenges that the group spoke into, and also the key asks for the G20 presidency. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Nombasa, for taking us through the overview of our priority areas as a working group. Like she has introduced, I am going to speak to the key challenges. If you can just give me a moment, let me also just try to ensure technology works. All right, thank you so much. So within our engagement group, we were able to identify the following as the key challenges. And basically what this looked at was the bigger picture issue that our policy approach and the recommendation responded to. The first was a look at structural inequities and a lack of universal access to health services, responding to our first priority area. And under this, we explored and motivated and looked at the fact that half of the world's population doesn't have access to essential health services, and there are widening gaps that as a result of discriminatory laws, gender-based violence, racism, structural issues like patriarchy and albinism, which continue to affect how people access health services. There are also marginalized groups which came out quite strongly, especially persons living with disabilities, as well as the LGBTQIA plus community, which face barriers to rights-based and culturally appropriate care. And as we went further, also looking at trauma and invasive approaches to how their health is managed. Under this, as one of the challenges also, we looked at the impact of sexual and reproductive health and rights, access to emergency services and mental health support as one of the challenges we wanted to address. Then also there was the emergence of the issue of over-medicalized hospital-centric systems that failed to address the needs of the community. I think it was important for us as a working group to take a look at how community engagement, and meaningfully so, is important to advance equity. We also then took a look at the fragility of health systems amidst polycrises. As Nombasa was introducing, there are competing health priorities that affect our nations and our states, not only as the African continent, but globally. They affect the low to middle income countries that we need to ensure are a priority as our leaders are deliberating within their engagements. The next one that we took a look at was, that was the polycrises. All right, the issue of the COVID-19 pandemic that exposed vulnerabilities such as the over-reliance on imports of medicines. Sub-Saharan Africa imports 70 to 90% of the medicines that its populations need. There's also issues around supply chain disruptions and inadequate pandemic preparedness, prevention and response systems that are in place. There was also the need to explore, as one of the challenges, the impact of the trade-offs between servicing debt and funding the health force, which results in an erosion of resilience and leads to impossible choices for governments. So that's the competing priorities that we were taking a look at. And then the health workforce crisis, underpaid, overworked and undervalued workers, 70% of whom are women, face burnouts, attrition and exclusion from leadership. But also there's a need to engage the community health workers who are often underpaid. So we need to ensure that they have adequate resources, including compensation. And then we also face, because of the challenging political and economic realities in the low to middle income countries, we face a significant brain drain that affects community health workers. There's also the lack of protections, fair pay, mental health support, and ethical recruitment that exacerbates inequalities. The other challenges that we took a look at were speaking at the structural components of our health systems in low to middle income countries. The first being the dependency on global manufacturing and or the impact of the dependency on global manufacturing and research and development inequities. The low to middle income countries bear a high burden of endemic disease, your HIV/AIDS, TB, malaria, and your neglected tropical diseases. However, we lack a diverse, regionally distributed manufacturing. We lack diversity as well as the ability to distribute and manufacture our vaccines. There are barriers around technology transfer, intellectual property restrictions, fragmented financing, regulatory gaps, which leave our regions vulnerable during outbreaks, for example, Mpox and Ebola. But also there is a rising burden of non-communicable diseases and mental health, which was a big point for us to highlight and include in the challenges that are faced by our populations. NCDs cause 74% of global deaths and 77% in low to middle income countries. And they are driven by commercial determinants like tobacco, alcohol, ultra-processed foods, air pollution, and climate change. Mental health is often under-recognized and underfunded. 75% of people in low to middle income countries that are affected by issues around mental health go untreated. They are conditions like depression, dementia, and suicide that are leading causes of disability and death. There's also weak prevention mechanisms, regulatory capture by industries, and a lack of integration into primary health care, which undermines sustainable development and impoverish families. There's also, as Nombasa was speaking, that we were very cognizant of the lack of visibility and inclusion of the traditional and indigenous knowledge systems into your health frameworks. The indigenous health knowledge systems in Africa, African natural medicines, which serve 60 to 80% of Africa's population, are marginalized and are excluded from mainstream health systems. There's also very little and very invisible legal protections, financing, and integration, which hinder holistic community anchored care, especially in rural areas that are already hard to reach for our health systems. There's also unsustainable and inequitable health financing that we put forward as a key challenge that we were looking to respond to as a working group. Global aid, as we have seen during, particularly in 2025 now, as the year has progressed, global aid is unpredictable. It is fragmented. It is donor-driven, while domestic resources are constrained by debt, narrow tax bases, and competing priorities. There's also the impact of corruption, which continues to siphon resources with weak accountability and transparency, eroding trust. The private sector involvement lacks human rights safeguards, risking further inequities, and then underfunding, which threatens the gains in global health initiatives. So your global fund, which is currently underway for its 8th replenishment, resources coming from the World Health Organization and other regional bodies that fund health responses. We find that there are still gaps in financing for universal health coverage, primary health care, and climate resilient systems. As we then deliberated and prioritized and narrowed down the asks to the G20, we collectively call for transformative G20 leadership to repair holistic historical inequities, build resilient and inclusive health systems, and ensure that health justice for all is a priority, particularly for low to middle income countries and marginalized populations. So we had 5 key asks, the first being build resilient health systems through universal health coverage, primary health care, and retention of the health workforce. So this can be done by strengthen health systems by prioritizing community-led, equitable, and resilient frameworks with a strong focus on sustainable financing, workforce protection, and accountability. The second ask to the G20 was advancing diversified health research and development and manufacturing for vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics for priority diseases. Our group, through the policy that we are submitting, called the G20 to address the vulnerabilities in global health supply chains by fostering regional manufacturing, equitable technology transfer, and innovation aligned with low to middle income country needs. The third was to stem the tide of non-communicable diseases, including mental health. And this was for the G20 leaders to address the burden of non-communicable diseases and mental health crises through prevention, integration into universal health coverage, and equitable governance. The fourth recommendation and ask we have to the G20 was the positioning of traditional medicine as a community-anchored health system response. And we want the G20 to integrate indigenous health knowledge systems and African natural medicines into health systems, leveraging South Africa's presidency to elevate African priorities. Lastly, we want the sustaining of domestic and global financing for health. The G20 is urged to champion a reimagined health financing architecture, which is equitable, sustainable, and participatory, addressing debt burdens and ensuring accountability. So those were our recommendations, but just to elaborate a little bit further, the overall recommendations then went to look at strengthening resilient, equitable health systems through community-led universal health coverage and primary health care, with the intended outcome to improve health equity and access, enhance health systems resilience, foster community empowerment and trust. It is cost-effective and promote sustainability as well as holistic health outcomes. There was also a recommendation that we put forward to reform health financing for equity and sustainability. And this looked at increasing fiscal space for health, sustainable for health through a sustainable global health funding, climate resilient health systems, enhanced accountability and transparency, and equity in financing decisions. Lastly, our recommendation is the advancement of regional health innovation and indigenous knowledge integration to reduce the dependency and enhance health security, strengthen economic and social development, build culturally relevant and accessible care, foster innovation and knowledge equity, and strengthen the One Health approach. Thank you so much. That was our submission on challenges and recommendations to the G20. Are we still on the call?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Could you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. May I please request again a mover as well as a seconder to the Working Group 11 policy? Okay.
Good afternoon again. My name is Sibusiso Mkize. I will move for the adoption of the policy brief of Work Group 11.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Oh.
Dumelang, Kalibito Kitebile Mjoli, Second.
Thank you. Round of applause for that, please. So now we are moving to the working group 12, which is science, research, and innovation investment. And we will be facilitated by John Mdluli, who will be joining us online. Mr. Mdluli, can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly, Julian. Yeah.
Okay, you may proceed.
Yeah, before I proceed, I will be co-presenting with my colleague, Dr. Ndumiso Chuma. Perhaps let me quickly hand over to him to start our presentation.
Okay.
Over to you, Dr. Dr. Can you hear us? If not, Julian, let me take this opportunity to thank the C20 leadership for the invite and also affording us the opportunity to come and present our policy, an overview of our policy brief. So I'm trying to share because we have actually prepared a presentation, and let me know if you can see our presentation. Hello?
Mr. Mdluli, can you please repeat that?
Yeah, I'm saying we have actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation and we're trying to share it. So I was just asking if you can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like I've said, this is basically our presentation, and we will be providing an update on the socialization of our working group. So I'm not sure if there's somebody sharing on my end. Yeah, so in our policy brief, we just quickly to indicate that the working group 12, which is science, research, innovation, and investment, it is co-facilitated by three partners.
Mr. Mdluli, sorry to cut you there, but we cannot see your presentation.
Let me reshare it again. I don't know what is happening.
May you please wait for a second? The ITT.
Okay. Or alternatively, I can quickly email it to the guy who was helping us with the IT.
Okay, yes, you may do that.
Will that work for you?
Yes, it will work. Jacob is waiting for your email.
Okay, sending it through now. Okay, I just. Oh. 17. I've just shared the presentation with Jacob.
Okay, he's working on it right now.
Did you get it, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm just checking this.
Okay. And I see Dr. Shuma is the meeting is saying he does not have a permission to join this meeting.
Okay, that's a technical difficulty. Jacob will deal with that. Mr. Mdluli, may you please share your presentation again?
Sharing it, let me know if you can see it.
We are unable to see your presentation on our side.
And I talk over the presentation because I don't know the way this thing has been set up is really not user friendly.
Yes, you may. So sorry for the inconvenience.
Oh, okay, maybe in starting with our presentation, I must say that the Science Research and Innovation Working Group really was co-hosted between three organizations, which is SATAC, GHTC, and the Best Health Solution. And then we had a couple of consultation sessions where we were really trying to finalize the policy as per request from Sherpa, including C20 leadership. And I must say that within those consultations, we have successfully managed to put together a policy brief that has been submitted in line with the required timelines. And here really we will look into our And the content of our policy brief, it has an executive summary, a problem statement. We're introducing the working group, and then we're looking at issues analysis and the recommendations. And really, in our executive summary, we have looked at the opportunity for South Africa to host the 2025 G20 presidency. And we believe that the science, research and innovation is central to Sustainable Developmental Goals 2020, and really science, research and innovation is key in building a resilience, including the global health equity. We further recognize that the G20 initiative on bioeconomic have advanced key deliverables, and the voices of civil society is very important, especially if we are to achieve equity, community agency, and the South-to-South collaboration really forms part of what we want to achieve. And further to that, we also believe that despite the global decline in the health research and development investment, access to health technology remains equally important. And really, in summarizing our executive summary, we believe that G20 leaders need to commit to an inclusive governance framework, and they need to ensure targeted financing for equitable outcome, and they need to strengthen regional anchored partnership and embed participation, justice, and equity in health research and innovation for community benefits. So for us really to start working on our policy brief, we started by identifying the problem or coming up with the problem statement. And in our problem statement, we realized that the science, research and innovation is critical in addressing global challenges, which include pandemic preparedness and response, the challenges associated with antimicrobial resistance, issues relating to climate change, and resilient and equitable access to health technologies and innovations. And we further advocate on the fact that persistence innovation will help us to address access gap limitation relating to historical marginalized population, rural communities, women, people with disability. I think the working group 11 spoke a lot about people with disabilities, and also making sure that adequate resources are allocated to the countries in the global south. So in terms of the progress, I must say that as a C20, we have been observing progress under the G20 Science, Research and Innovation. And I must say that so far, there has been 3 meetings that has been conveyed under G20 Science, Research and Innovation, with first meeting happening in February of 2025 in the University of Free State. This was followed by second meeting in May of 2025 that happened in Mpumalanga, and recently in September 2025 there was a third meeting for the Science, Research and Innovation that took place at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in Pretoria. And all of this engagement really laid the foundation for the G20 Research and Innovation Ministerial Declaration. And I must say that despite us starting late, we have really been fully engaged as the Science, Research and Innovation leadership. We participated in the constitution of the Science Research and Innovation in June especially when the C20 was launched, and we continue to advocate for equity and South-to-South collaboration. And really, we've got a couple of frameworks that we are looking at, frameworks such as African Union 2024 guidelines, the Abuja Declaration, the WU Local Production and Tech Transfer Agenda, and the draft G20 Declaration on Research and Innovation. And all of this really allows us to highlight the role of science and innovation as being essential for sustainable development, reliance, and preparedness, as we said, and really looking at how we can mobilize resources given the recent challenges with limited resources. And we therefore believe that the G20 leadership has the opportunity to ensure that there is equitable benefit for all, especially amongst the previously disadvantaged communities. And then in terms of issues, when we were doing issues analysis, a couple of issues were identified really, and one of the issues that were identified was innovation capacity and infrastructural gap. We have realized that without capacity and infrastructure, it will really be difficult to achieve what we are planning to do as the Science Research and Innovation Working Group. And then secondly, we've also seen that the technology transfer and equitable access are really important, especially if we are to work with universities. This will really make sure that there is that tech transfer, which eventually lead to equitable access to health technologies. Most importantly, financing and partnerships. Realizing the current crisis that we are facing as in the world, what we have identified was that we really need to strengthen the regional innovation ecosystem that ensures that there's a global there's an investment in the global south, and we can only do this by being innovative in terms of how health technologies can be funded. And then we also looked at how can we support the research on poverty related, including neglected diseases. So we know for sure that poverty has been strongly linked to the emergence of diseases, and over the years there hasn't been enough investment into technology, into poverty alleviation activities. And we believe that if people can eat healthy, if people can experience less stress, all of this can really help us to make sure that we have a healthy African community. And then one of the things that we also looked at was the governance reform, including civil society organization. And the reality is that in everything that you are doing without civil society, really you are leaving the end users, including the beneficiaries of these technologies. So it's therefore very important that when health technologies are designed, communities and civil society form part of the discussion as early as possible. We further realize that there are cross-cutting issues really, which include your climate change, your digital ethics investment, and if we can all address some of these issues as a collective, we will really be able to move forward with our opportunity of hosting the G20. And in finalization, I would like to say we have made a couple of recommendations. And one of the recommendations was really we need to institutionalize community-based participatory research, because we believe if we can work with communities in co-creating all of those health technologies, in that way we can share the ownership of all these technologies, and we're more likely to get the buy-in from our communities. And one of the recommendations is that we really need to look at how we can close the gap, including access gap, by using equitable financing, tech transfer, and fair distribution of resources amongst those who need them. And we also need to strengthen our regional ecosystem by investing in infrastructure capacity and network in the global south. One of the biggest challenges, colleagues, when it comes to health research and innovation is the issue around regulatory harmonization. So we really need to make sure that we align our regional and international framework so that when products becomes available, they are approved or they go through an approval process as quick as possible. And then in conclusion, we also need to make sure that everybody is involved, irrespective of gender, irrespective of ability, including whether they are from rural or urban areas, as we move towards the G20 agenda. We really need to make sure that everybody is catered for and everybody gets to benefit out of the G20 programs or opportunities. On that note, Julian, let me take this opportunity to thank you and thank everyone. I think Dr. Ndumiso might have joined, and we will be available to answer any questions should there be any clarity needed. Thanks. Can you still hear me, Julian? Hello?
Thank you, Mr. Mdluli. May I please request again for a mover as well as a seconder? Anyone, please? Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I am a mover for Working Group 11. Thanks.
Do we have a seconder?
Was it 11 or 12?
It
Sorry.
was 12.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bonga, and I second the adoption of the Working Group 12 policy brief.
Thank you. Round of applause for that. So I'm going to call upon the representative for Working Group 13, who is outside. Did they send Isokole in? No. We're going to move to 14 and then 13. Okay, so the representative of Working Group 13 cannot join us at the moment, so they will send through their policy brief and we will read it on their behalf. But what we're going to do now is we're going to move to Working Group 14, which is Energy Just Transition, Environment and Climate Sustainability, and it will be facilitated by Wanjiku Wairia. Wanjiki, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Iskati siyaphakama kodwa simenjalo, isibani siyakhanya esivusweni sethu, amakhanda phezulu, izwi lithi phambili, hlala uqotho ungakhohlwa izimpande. Umhlaba uyakhuluma, izwi lakho liyamangalisa, ngaphakathi kuwe amandla ami, ngaphakathi kuwe ikhaya lami, ngaphakathi kwethu amandla khalipha, ngaphakathi kwethu isibani siyakhanya, phakama mawethu, sigugu, sigugu, njalo njalo, njalo njalo, ubumnandi bempilo buyafihla, kodwa qobo luyabiza, izintaba zikukhumbuza, uqine ungaphazami, ngaphakathi kwethu amandla khalipha, ngaphakathi kwethu isibani siyakhanya, phakama phakama mawethu, sigugu, sigugu, siyakhanya. Phakama, phakama, mawethu sigugu, sigugu, njalo njalo, njalo njalo, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please take a 15-minute break because we're experiencing technical difficulties? Sorry for the inconvenience.
Sihamba sonke izwe libanzi amazwi ethu ahlanganisa imiphefumulo ngiyabona ukukhanya kuphuma ezinhliziyweni noma ungowaphi sihlangana njengamanzi ubuhle bomhlaba buhle buyakhanya. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, izandla zethu zibanjiwe, amadwala nezihlahla azikhulumi kodwa siyakwazi ukuzwa izindaba zabo. Ulwandle luluhlaza, izulu limhlophe, ngiyabona izintaba simema sonke, izwi linye, iqiniso elilodwa. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, izandla zethu zibanjiwe, awukwazi ukuvala umoya othandayo, awukwazi ukuvalela izinkanyezi ezikhanyayo, ngoba sonke singabantu, izintambo zomphefumulo siyaphila, siyathandana, siphelele. Ubuntu, ubuntu, sihlangene, sihamba ndawonye. Ubuntu, ubuntu, Umhlaba ukhula ngothando lwakhe, izandla zakhe zenza izwe lihlume. Ubuso buhle ukukhanya kwemini, ububele bakhe umthombo wempilo. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, siyakukhothamela, siyakukhothamela makhosi ayazamandla akho. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, izwi lakho linjengemvula ethulile, amadolo aphansi sikhuleka kuwe. Ngaphezu kwamaguma udlula izivunguvungu, umama wethu ukhanya ngathi inkanyezi, ngoba wena uyisibani sethu. Ngoba wena uyinkanyezi yethu. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, siyakukhothamela, siyakukhothamela, amakhosi ayazamandla akho. Umama omkhulu, umama omkhulu, izizwe zihlangana phansi kwezinyawo zakho, amazwi akho ayisihloko sezinganekwane. Thina siyakuhlabelela, siyakuhlabelela, ngoba wena uyasipha impilo. Umama omkhulu, izihlahla ziyakhula, ziyahluma, amanzi ayageleza angapheli, izulu liyanetha liyavuna. Ubuhle bemvelo buyaphefumula, ubuhle bemvelo, ubuhle bemvelo. Siyabonga, siyabonga. Ubuhle bemvelo, ubuhle bemvelo. Siyabonga, siyabonga. Ilanga liyakhanya, liyashisa, imifula iyadansa, iyaphila, imvelo iyasiseka, iyasiguba. Umhlaba wethu uyamangalisa. Sibonga, sibonga izibusiso zemvelo, ubuhle bemvelo. liyahlanzekile izwi lomoya likhuluma nami ngiyabonga izinsuku zethu ngiyabonga impilo yethu ukukhanya kwelanga umusa wethulo ngiyabonga ngiyabonga konke kwanele izandla zami zikhululekile sizwa ubumnandi imfudumalo yomhlaba buzo sobuntu amagagasi akhubeka ngiyabonga yakhe yawa ngiyabonga izinsuku zethu ngiyabonga impilo yethu ngiyabonga konke kuyisipho ngiyabonga naphakathi nasemhlabeni umoya ngiyabonga ngokuphila kwethu ngiyabonga konke kuyikho umhlaba ukhula ngotha izandla zakhe zenza izwe lihlume ubuso buhle ukukhanya kwemini ububele siyakukhothamela siyakukhothamela amakhosi ya izwi lakho linjengemvula ethulile amadolo aphansi sikhuleka kuwe ngaphezu kwamakuma udlula izivunguvungu umama we ukangathi ingane ngoba wena uyisibanise ngoba wena uyinkanyezi yethu umama omkhulu. Amakhosi ayazi amandla umama omkhulu umama zihlangana phansi kwezinyawo zakho amaya wayihloko sesingane thina siyakuhlabelela siyakuhlabelela umama omkhulu. Ngibona izintaba eziphakeme amazwi aphakathi kimi ayangidonsa esiphakaphakeme ngikhuluma namaphupho wami ngiyakhwaya kodwa ngikredi nomkhawulo phezulu phezulu siphakama phezulu izulu liyakhala kodwa asiduki imimoya iyahamba kodwa ngishukani ngaphandle kwezindonga ngibona ukukhanya
Okay.
Dumelang. I'm Rebone Notwane, the cluster coordinator for Working Group 13, the Digital and Inclusive Economies. I'm standing in for Utando Lukoko. He couldn't make it. So kindly bear with me, guys. I forgot my spectacles, so I'll be reading from my phone. Okay. All right. The Global South is living through a defining moment. Africa in particular is facing the intersecting crisis of inequality. Climate change and rapid technological transformation, Yet we have never been so emboldened and equipped to find solutions rooted in solidarity. This policy brief reflects the deliberations of a globally representative civil society working group on digital and inclusive economies under the C20 South Africa. This brief is a result of deliberations born from a broad spectrums of voices that have identified specific avenues for the Department of International Relations and other relevant ministries to take immediately, leading us closer to digital and inclusive economies that leave no one behind. I'm going to move to the challenges. All right. Current economic system continue to reproduce inequality within and between countries. Many nations in the global south face mounting debt, burdens, exploitative global trade, and tax practices. Guys, kindly bear with me. I forgot my spectacles, so I'm struggling. At the same time, digital technologies which could act as levels for empowerment are primarily shaped by and serve the interest of entities outside our regions. Digital exclusion, extractive data practices, and a limited public digital infrastructure threaten to widen inequality. We're going to move to the recommendations. All right. The aim of this policy brief is to catalyze the shift by addressing an aspect of inclusivity that prefaces any other policy shift. By connecting rural and indigenous communities, individuals will be empowered to access opportunities introduced by digitization. Increase efficiency in existing economic models, and add value by realizing new sustainable avenues for growth within these communities. Recommendation number 1 is inclusive economies. Its aim is to prioritize inclusive economic policies that center the needs and agency of marginalized groups, ensuring accessibility to digital platforms that promote local economic structures. Number 2, skills transfer in the form of readily accessible training in native languages on how to optimize use of digital tools, providing support initiatives that leverage AI tools. Point number 3, digital economies. It aims to develop digital public infrastructure. All right. The purpose is to raise upfront capital, regional digital infrastructure bonds to finance last mile networks, satellite backhaul, community access points, assertive technology, and local contact hubs. All right. Okay. We're going to move to the key private partners to engage early. Number 1, it's telecom operators. Number 2, it's infrastructure investors and regional pension funds. Number 3, it's mobile money platforms. Okay. Just a second. Nzako, can you please assist? going forward. Yes. All right. Okay. All right. No, it's fine. We don't have to let him know. I didn't know you were part of the working group. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for your patience. Sibonga will take over from here.
Thanks so much for that introduction. I'll just pick up where you left off, if that's okay. I'll also just read from the brief. So to summarize, so the aim of the brief was to really catalyze that shift for digital and inclusive economies, to make sure that we highlight groups that have been historically excluded from participating in digital economies. So how do we look towards including marginalized communities such as people with disabilities, LGBTQ groups, and the elderly in any digital policies going forward as well. And so part of our recommendations also included, okay, so how do we think about digital identity systems, for example? And so digital identity systems are a key component of digital public infrastructure and governance. And so these systems must be rights-based, inclusive, and voluntary. And they must also include biometric identification on a privacy by design basis, which will then allow citizens to develop trust in the systems and readily and voluntarily adopt new technologies. And so they must also address issues of data abuse, particularly, again, for marginalized or stateless persons, undocumented individuals, displaced persons, and historically marginalized communities. The third recommendation touches on digital literacy and skills development. And so our key recommendation here is to design or endorse rather the global digital skills compact policy, co-design it with grassroots civil society, which also aims to add and provide AI fluency and digital and financial literacy training to 10 million girls and youth in rural and peri-rural areas by 2030. And so this, again, must also include people with disabilities, disability-specific curricula as well, assistive technology integration, and training that is delivered in accessible formats, which includes national sign language, and open captioning. And also digital skilling, reskilling, and upskilling efforts must include and be led and co-created with these groups that we've been mentioning to avoid any further marginalization. And the next recommendation we had touched on AI governance and public participation. So key recommendations here were to institutionalize deliberative mechanisms in AI policymaking, establish independent oversight bodies with representation from civil society, and ensure that ethical AI that is developed prioritizes the public and benefits the public as well, is equitable and is based on human rights at its core. And so AI governance frameworks must integrate disability inclusive principles and ensure participation of persons with disabilities in all stages of its design. And another recommendation under that was, how do we look at technology and knowledge transfer? And so for here, we stated that we need to reaffirm G20 commitments to open innovation and technology transfer. It's important to establish South-to-South cooperations, partnerships, and platforms for digital innovation. Also to ensure digital accountability frameworks, which include mechanisms to monitor accessibility, compliance, and the safeguarding of rights of persons with disabilities, and also enable redress where digital services exclude or discriminate. Another recommendation was highlighting data justice and digital sovereignty. And so this looked at, we said that this requires native led innovations and products to process local data and uphold local data protection policies. So in South Africa, we would be guided by the POPIA Act, for example. And also to ensure that children, people of African descent, persons with disabilities, and other vulnerable populations benefit from the data and are protected from exploitative use. An important point here as well was to capacitate and adequately resource data protection authorities to enable them to not only perform their duties, but also be at the cutting edge of issues within their functional areas. And then a key part of these digital intake recommendations is, how do we hold these corporations, accountable? And so we said that in order to hold tech corporations accountable, we need to establish comprehensive accountability mechanisms across the supply chain, especially within the grounding of labor rights, e-waste as well, and the extraction of critical minerals. So this includes carbon taxes on data centers with revenues that are ring-fenced for renewable energy transitions, and extraction taxes on critical minerals, which are accompanied by mandatory local value any additional requirements. And so any digitally innovative technologies that are driven by AI must undergo critical and ethical review, as well as community validation before being implemented and scaled up for society use. And these reviews must also assess biases in their training data and output so that they avoid perpetuating any inequalities and ensure transparency in AI decision-making for accountability, and again, adhere to local privacy and data protection regulations. Another key recommendation was information integrity. And so here we want to promote and systematize transparency and accountability of digital platforms, invest in healthy information ecosystems by implementing content moderation safeguards, promoting algorithm transparency, and launching media literacy campaigns. This is to ensure that content moderation and media literacy efforts are inclusive of all these groups that we've been highlighting, including those marginalized groups with sensory, cognitive, and communication disabilities. And so if we're looking at digitally enabled economies, a key recommendation here was looking at the standards and regulations of digital tools, digital governance for inclusion, and support for inclusive innovation economies. And so if we touch on this recommendation for support for inclusive and innovation economies, here we said to fund women, youth and disability-led tech enterprises across social tiers, embed persons with disabilities in the design, governance, and evaluation of innovation ecosystems, fund capacity building initiatives, and also provide grant and procurement opportunities, ensure accessible mentorship platforms, and remove any structural barriers to participation in tech economies. This includes communication accessibilities, adaptive technologies, and also digital infrastructure. And then lastly, how do we look at sustainable digital development? And so here we said that we need to promote and invest in design for longevity and digital infrastructure, reduce tech waste, and ensure digital development aligns with environmental justice goals. Sustainability must also be considered alongside equity. Digital infrastructure projects should incorporate disability-inclusive sustainability indicators, including e-waste management practices that support accessible device recycling and distribution to low-income populations with disabilities. And so finally, we said that the purpose of these recommendations listed above is to contribute to the body of knowledge of shifting from GDP to well-being economies. And so those that center on human development with measurable indicators aligned across health, education, social protection, and ecological sustainability. And so in conclusion, our recommendations reflect a vision for a just transition towards digital and inclusive economies that work for all. This is grounded in solidarity, driven by equality, and committed to sustainability. And these proposals demand not only bold policymaking, but also a reimagining of power, ownership, and participation in the global economy. And so we call on the G20 and its member states to heed these calls, not as charity, but as a matter, of justice. We are not asking to be included in someone else's economy. We are building the economy of the future together. This future economy must be co-created with historically excluded groups, including persons with disabilities whose lived experiences, innovation, and leadership are critical to shaping inclusive, accessible, and sustainable systems. Their full participation is not optional. It is essential to ensuring economic justice for all. I will end there, and yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. And may I request again, if there's one person who will be the mover and someone else who will be the seconder. Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Toby Letlatla. I'm from AIC Foundation, and I will be the mover for the policy recommendation for Working Group 13. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pumla Nzuza. I second.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for that. So right now we're going to move into the last working group 14, Energy Just Transition, Environment and Climate Sustainability. So Dr. Janet will not be able to join us due to technical difficulties. So we have Mr. Srinivas Krishnaswamy, if I pronounce it well, who will be representing Working Group 14. Mr. Srini, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
This is Wanjiko.
But it's Wanjiko. Dr. Wanjiko will take the lead.
Okay, you may proceed.
All right. Greetings, everybody. I trust this does find you well. Greetings from the cradle of humanity to the leadership of the C20, the G20 member states, and all colleagues joining us from across the time zones, all protocols observed. On behalf of the G20, C20 Energy Just Transitions, Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group 14, it is indeed my profound honor to welcome you to this finalization presentation of our policy brief, the final step on our collective journey towards the C20 declaration and policy brief adaptations. This is more than a technical convening to us. It is a gathering of spirit, science, and solidarity. Together, we reaffirm that sustainability is not only an environmental imperative, but a moral and generational responsibility. One that calls us to restore balance between people, planet, and prosperity. I wish to warmly acknowledge my fellow co-facilitators, Dr. Janet Nakamwe from the African Diaspora Women's Network, ADN in South Africa, and Dr. Srinivas Krishnaswamy, who is the CEO at Vasuda Foundation in India. He will be stepping in for Dr. Janet as part of our presentation was planned, so kindly accept her apologies due to technical challenges. We also want to really acknowledge our dedicated technical team whose collective commitment has brought us to this meaningful moment of convergence. We also acknowledge the support and collaboration of our institutional partners, technical contributors, whose commitment has strengthened this process. Today's presentation will be in a three-part, now that we are the two of us, Dr. Srinivas, so it will be more of a two-part today, where we'll unpack our brief and seek your indulgence of the adoption of its essence as one that reflects the lived realities and aspirations of the communities we are called to serve and that we represent. As we hold this space, I will start off with an overview that speaks to solidarity, sustainability, and stewardship. And thereafter, I will hand over to Dr. Srinivas, who will then take over from me. So what have we said? What have we put together? What has the world said? What have our communities said? And why does it matter? Despite ambitious declarations, the climate trajectories suggest a world that's heading to 2.6 degrees of warming, far above the Paris Agreement of 1.5 degrees centigrade threshold. Inaction and fragmented efforts risk deepening global inequalities and unfortunately unleashing irreversible damage to our ecosystems and our economies. The impacts disproportionately affect women, youth, indigenous people, our rural communities, persons with disability, and the LGBTQIA+ communities as well. South Africa's G20 presidency presents a historic opportunity for all of us to champion justice, social safeguards, and people-centric climate, where all energy is just, and the transition is also rooted in solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and if you look at our brief, you will see the reference there, reiterates that the anthropogenic greenhouse gas, GHG emissions, continue to escalate and accelerate global warming, pushing global mean temperatures way above the pre-industrial levels of 1.1, as well as unsustainable consumption and production patterns. Further, the report warns that without urgent action, the 1.5 degree target of the Paris Agreement is likely to be breached. Our brief reflects the civil society priorities. It outlines our key considerations for energy just transition, environment and climate sustainability during the South African G20 presidency. It advances the current theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, and acknowledges the African Union Agenda of 2063 as the continent's blueprint and vehicle for sustainable development, climate resilience, and green industrialization. As I come towards the end of this, I will request the technical team to kindly put up our slides so that we are able to follow the presentations together. Moreover, it builds on declarations previous 3 G20 presidencies, namely Indonesia, India, and Brazil, and urges that the G20 should champion equitable and inclusive climate action as groups represent 85% of the GDP globally and 2/3 of the population and is well placed to lead this developmental agenda on focus, energy, just transition, environment, and climate sustainability. Our policy brief is grounded in the intersection analysis, including desktop research, case studies, focus groups, expert interviews, and consultative webinars, offering key recommendations to advance an inclusive, just, centric, people-centered environment and climate sustainability. We will get deeper into our recommendations, but as a highlight, we had 3 key recommendations: energy security and sovereignty, inclusive and rights-based transition, sustainable financing, and environment and biodiversity conservation. If the technical team could let us know whether they are able to put up our presentations or we should project for ourselves. It would be useful to get feedback. Jacob and Tim?
You can project.
Sorry?
You can project.
All right. Allow me 1 minute to project so that Dr. Srinivas can take it up from there. I've given the key highlights, and he will start on where our priority areas are. We are privileged to have straddled 2 G20 working groups, one which is the energy just transition and environment and climate sustainability. And you will see this reflected in our presentations and our engagements. Dr. Srinivas, over to you. As I upload this and project it, you can start with the introduction and the focus of the working stream, which you were leading. We had 2 working streams because of straddling both environments. Dr. Srinivas, the floor is yours, and I yield the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Banjiko, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, depending on which part of the globe you're all joining in from. At the outset, thank you very much to the organizers for giving us the opportunity to present the work that the Working Group 14 has put together over the last few months. And as Dr. Banjiko said, straddling across 2 key areas. One is the whole aspect of energy transition, and the other one is ecology, environment, and sustainability. To start off, let me sort of give you a sense of what are the broad priority areas we looked at. So from a energy angle, we looked at energy diplomacy, we looked at energy poverty. So primarily we looked at energy security and also looked at energy poverty eradication. We looked at technology and innovation. That was very important. We took cognizance of the fact that new technologies for energy transition would require critical minerals, and so critical minerals needs to be given a very separate and independent, solutions, and to ensure that there is no exploitation, or we minimize exploitation, or we eradicate exploitation, so to speak. We also took cognizance of the fact that to address climate change, particularly in the developing economies, there is a huge amount of money that is required. The climate finance is a very, very key issue. and it shouldn't lead to countries entering. So we took cognizance of process. Now, if you look at climate change, again, there are a lot of solutions that could be land intensive or resource intensive aside of critical minerals. So, for example, if you look at solar, solar requires a huge land footprint. So, but then land is also critical for multiple uses. So, how do we sort of ensure that there is a justice in addressing both climate change as well as to ensure that the transition is very just and people-centric? We looked at biodiversity, land rights. We looked at intellectual property, indigenous knowledge systems, industrial decarbonization. We looked at MSME inclusion. So primarily our whole focus was to look at how can energy transition be just and not at the cost of environment, ecology, to put it in one sentence. Now, with that as a backdrop, let me sort of look at what are the key challenges we looked at. As Dr. Wanjiku said very clearly in her opening statement, we are seeing at best a 2.5 to a 3 degrees Celsius temperature rise, given the kind of commitments that countries have made so far to address climate change, which is there in the multiple nationally determined contributions that countries have submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, we are way behind on addressing or reaching the 1.5 degree Celsius target, or the trajectory that the IPCC requires and what the Paris Agreement has said. So that was one key challenge. And the second thing we also looked at is that energy sovereignty and poverty. So what are the issues on energy poverty? For instance, 650 million globally and 600 million Africa lack access to clean, affordable, sustainable electricity, and over 2 billion globally lack access to clean cooking, especially women. So there is an issue of energy poverty, but there's also an issue of energy sovereignty in the sense that there's a lot of dependence on coal and continual dependence on fossil fuel. Even today, almost 80% of the global energy supply is from fossil fuel. And that clearly has to change if you have to address climate change and be on a 1.5 degrees Celsius trajectory. We also looked at indigenous knowledge systems, and we realized that there is a lot of impetus given to new research and new technologies, which might be good, which could be good, but at the same time, there are these indigenous technology or indigenous knowledge systems that are sometimes forgotten, are ignored, and all of these, or many of these, are also low carbon in nature. I also spoke of the critical mineral dependency and how do we ensure that while we understand and take cognizance of the fact that critical minerals are absolutely essential for new carbon neutral technologies, how do we ensure that there is equity in the critical minerals usage? At the same time, how do we ensure that communities that depend or that are in the areas of critical mineral mining are not displaced or not indisposed in any way? I spoke of financing gaps and debt risks. That is, again, a huge risk for us. Inequities in transition. There is a saying that goes that in every transition does impact a lot of communities, particularly coal workers, people working in the internal combustion engines of vehicles. How do we ensure that, and it's not just people who are directly engaged in these enterprises, but the entire value chain, they get impacted by transition? And how do we ensure that in the course of the energy transition, no one is left behind in the transition, but everybody is taken along, carried along? And then, of course, we talked of weak climate governance, and that is non-binding commitments. How do we ensure that countries agree to what they have committed, not just in the NDCs, but look at more ambitious NDCs? So with that, our key ask was energy security and sovereignty. What we actually did was we built upon some of the recommendations that came from the last three southern, and now the fourth southern G20. So we looked at Indonesia, India, Brazil, and now South Africa. We looked at the important vision of the South African presidency. And based on that, on the energy security, what we said that how do we ensure that the G20 works together to ensure that what was agreed in the previous G20, which is tripling of renewables and doubling of energy efficiency, is implemented in true spirit, which means that when you say implementation, there is a support given to all countries to triple their renewable energy and double the energy efficiency. And this could be by way means of technology, by means of finance, by means of policy support, whatever it is required to do that. Also establish a framework for critical minerals to ensure that there is equity in the supply of critical minerals, and that doesn't lead to land grabbing or doesn't lead to unnecessary wars and so on and so forth. Eradicate energy poverty through universal access to clean, affordable, and reliable, sustainable energy for all. In the issue of inclusive, right-based transition, we said that there is importance to be given to respect inclusivity, uphold free, prior, and informed consent, technology, knowledge sharing, capacity building for climate and energy planning, integrate indigenous knowledge system, embed gender-responsive frameworks to support workers, both direct and indirect, the entire value chain, and then informal economies, women, youth, and vulnerable groups. Sustainable financing, we've been, as civil society groups, we have been always demanding that there should be access to public finance, and whatever is the funding available for climate, addressing climate, should be non-debt creating, equitable, reparative funding, joint development of low carbon technologies, and framework to enable MSME diversification and decarbonization. On the environment and biodiversity conservation, adopt international treaties like the Minamata Convention to scale up community-led conservation and ecosystem restoration, eradicate toxic substance, plastics, pesticides, and mercury through a global moratorium, advance organic alternatives, sustainable waste management, and enforce policy against capitalist extravagantism to safeguard biodiversity, oceans, water, and air quality. Now, what are the recommendations? Coming to the recommendations, we spoke of the challenge. We said what our key asks are. In terms of the key recommendation, number one, again, building upon some of the asks, develop a fair, transparent, critical minerals framework, pit to product, non-pit to port, and beneficiation. This is what we talked of. Second, domesticate climate commitments into a law. Now, one could question whether a law is required, but yes, otherwise our commitments then becomes very ad hoc, or implementation becomes loose. Accelerate renewable energy tripling and efficiency doubling by 2030. Create a transition funds for workers and MSMEs, particularly with a view to ensure that no one is left behind in the energy transition. Improve urban and rural planning to safeguard forests, food security, biodiversity, ecosystems amidst escalating climate disasters and risks. We took cognizance of the fact that when you look at climate, there are a lot of cross-sectoral and cross-sectional issues that one will have to address. Tripling renewables could come at the cost of land. So how do you do it? How do you look at systems? Look at urban planning, where you can look at rooftop solar systems where land is not required, right? So how do you bring in these cross-sectoral issues is what we try to bring in here. And that's why we said improve urban and rural planning to safeguard forests, food security, biodiversity, at the same time advancing renewable energy and energy efficiency. Address chemical waste and pollution, ban pesticides, use of mercury, and adopt the Minamata Convention. Now, going forward on the recommendations, we also talked of adopt gender-responsive, just energy transition frameworks, scale up community-led conservation, ecosystem restoration, and plant rehabilitation. There's a lot of work that's happening on the ground in a lot of our countries, and how do we scale it up? a lot of these information is not publicly known to all, and how do we share this information, share the best practice, and ensure there's a scale up of such actions. Channelize funds into climate smart agriculture, waste management, air quality monitoring, including black carbon. Institutionalize indigenous rights and free prior informed consent. Standalone policy on gender sensitive and inclusive disaster management, research, education, and public awareness. These are the key recommendations. Now, like I said, when we developed all of this, we also looked at a whole lot of policy instruments that are there. Now, we looked at the Paris Agreement, and we studied a lot of indices. We looked at the Dar es Salaam Declaration for Electricity Access Commitments across all the 48 African states. We looked at the Minamata Convention on Mercury. And then we also looked at cross-regional renewable energy integration, what came up, and what is sort of the something that the International Solar Alliance introduced. A very interesting concept called the One Sun, One World, One Grid, which basically says that how can you have sharing of electricity grid across countries so that solar can be maximized across the globe. Africa, so when in a place where the sun rises, somewhere it sets, and then where it sets, it rises again. So you have sunshine almost throughout. So how do you ensure that there is the one sun, one world, one grid kind of a concept? The Africa Union Agenda 2063, which is of green industrialization and climate resilient blueprint. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, AR6 findings, which talks of urgency and equity imperatives. We looked at the various sustainable development goals, 1 to 15. We looked at the free, prior, informed consent, Africa Union gender policy, United Nations framework, the Sendai framework for disaster risk research, risk reduction, the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, and the Kuming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the International Labour Organization's guidelines on just transition, the African Union Strategy for Climate Change and Resilient Development, Africa Renewable Energy Initiative, the International Solar Alliance's initiative, Southern African Development Community Climate Change Strategy, so on and so forth. And then based on that, we developed that. I'll stop here for now, but hand it back to Wanjiko. If there are any questions, Dr. Wanjiko and I will be happy to answer. Over to you, Dr. Wanjiko.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Srinivas. I was hoping you will also be able to speak to the policy instruments that we used. Then I can come in and wrap it up.
I talked about that.
All right. Thank you very much. I was hoping you would just delve a bit more, especially on the ones on environment and air quality. But thank you very much. We are missing our expert here, Dr. Janet, who then would have handled this for us. So accept our sincere apologies for not being able to project the presentation as had been previously shared for projection. That not being said, allow me to close with a few words that allow us to speak to the key elements that have been highlighted, but most importantly, to what this journey has been like and what it will be. So even as we wrap this up, we do really want to say thank you to our co-joint facilitators, specifically Dr. Srinivas and there's Dr. Janet, who would have been lovely for you to engage her. And I am Wanjiko Wairia, and I'm honored to serve as the first amongst equals as a lead facilitator for the WG14. I'm a Pan-African feminist, policy architect, and a global governance catalyst. And ESG is at the heart of what I do. As we carry forward, let us take on the resonance of Africa and the stewardship of our shared planetary destiny. And let us always know that the land remembers, the air testifies, and the people rise. Thank you very much, and back to you. I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. We've reached the end of our program. So thank you, colleagues and delegates, for your active participation and thoughtful contributions throughout today's session. The presentations and adoption of these policy briefs mark a powerful step forward in strengthening the voice of civil society within the G20 process. And I would like to apologize, my sincere apologies for the technical difficulties that we've experienced today. Some of our speakers had issues in terms of connectivity. I know it caused a delay and frustration. As we conclude, let's carry this momentum into action, ensuring that the policies we've shaped here translate into real impact for the communities we serve. And lunch will be served right here. So,
I'm sorry, before we close the meeting, I'm not sure whether we have adopted the policy for Working Group 14.
I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry about that. May I please request that we have a mover as well as a seconder for the Working Group 14 policy. Also the two.
Thank you. My name is Sibusiso Mkizi. I move for the adoption of the policy brief for Work Group 14. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am the seconder for WG 14. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause for that, please. So sorry about that. So as I was saying, that now we have officially closed the program and we can move into lunch.
Amathunzi ezihlahla amanzi ahlanzekile izwi lomoya likhuluma nami izinsuku zethu ubumnandi imfudumalo yomhlaba isikhumbuzo sobuntu amagagasi olwandle akhubeka engakhathali ngiyabonga konke kuyimpilo izwi lami liyakhuleka ngiphakamisela izulu ngithokoza ngempela